Everyone's going to talk about going all in on your goals, but it's actually talking about the cost, the loneliness, the sacrifice, the self-doubt, the uncertainty. But if you actually learn how to go all in on yourself, the rewards can completely change your life. And in this video, we're going to talk about it. But before we talk about going all in on yourself, we need to actually define what this actually means. And to me, it means committing to a goal or a mission. And this mission is your North Star. It's the thing that you're prioritizing over a majority of the things in your life. And it's the thing that constantly consumes your mind. Some people will call this their Roman Empire. And this is what they constantly think about on a day-to-day basis. And it's when you give your best pursuit to that North Star or to that goal on a day-to-day basis. This goal is constantly consuming you. And in a way, you kind of shape your life to fit that particular goal. And the first time I remember really going all in on myself was when I was playing soccer. From the ages of 14 to 18, soccer was my life. I loved the sport. I fell in love with it. And I got so consumed by it. I had one goal in mind, and that was to get an academic and athletic scholarship to a top university. This was a way where I could play the sport I love while pursuing my education. So what I did in the process is I joined one of the best clubs in my region. I was training 5 to 6 times a week, early morning 5 a.m. hill runs to late night film sessions, traveling all across the country, traveling outside of the country. Like, this was my goal. This was my purpose. And it came with so many ups and so many downs. I mean, for all my athletes, a sport can teach you so many valuable lessons. I remember when I sprained my ankle really bad. I remember through soccer is when I broke my jaw. I've had some of the highest highs throughout the sport, the lowest of lows. And that was the first time I vividly remember going all in. Now, one of the beauties of going all in on your goals is it actually becomes a lot easier when you actually love what you do. It becomes very difficult to try to go all in on a particular goal or a mission when you're not actually passionate about it. Although I was training 5 to 6 times a week on my pursuit to go play soccer, and even on the days where I didn't want to show up, deep down I still loved the sport. I loved watching the sport, I loved playing the sport, and it gave me such joy and passion. So it wasn't so hard to show up every single day and pursue this goal. And for those who want to know how the story ends, I did end up getting a scholarship and completing that goal from going all in on myself. But life has a crazy way of working out, because later on I'd ended up turning down that scholarship, pursue something else. And that's the first thing I really want to drill to everyone watching this video. Whatever you plan on going all in, that North Star, that goal that you have, I really hope that you actually enjoy it. Like, if you strip everything away, the fame, the accolades, the success, maybe the money for some of you, the notoriety, like, do you actually enjoy what your goal is? Because when you do, I promise you, it will make it a lot easier to pursue it. Because there is one guarantee, like, if you are going all in on yourself, all in on your goals, you need to understand that you are going to be met with rejection, you are going to be met with setbacks, and even failures. But you see, when you truly enjoy what you're doing, it will keep you in the game for a long time. And I think about myself with content creation. I mean, I've been documenting my journey since high school. And for all my content creators, you'll understand there's a lot of mental gymnastics that you have to go through as a content creator. Oh, how am I going to be perceived? Dealing with people talking about your videos, posting a video, putting so much time and effort into it and it not doing well. But I realized, like, no matter how many of those experiences I encounter, I still love creating content. I still love showing up for you guys, documenting the process, sharing wisdom and knowledge with all of you. So which is why I've committed to this vision, which is why I've stuck with it. And like I mentioned before, because I've thoroughly enjoyed this process, it makes it a lot easier to stick with it. So a lot of people would consider this passion or this love that they have for whatever they're doing. But remember, no matter what goal you're trying to pursue, there will always be friction. There's always going to be roadblocks and barriers set in the way. But when you have that passion, it will allow you to survive those seasons. It will allow you to actually continue to persevere forward when so many others would have just given up. So now let's talk about a framework that we can use as high performers to ensure that going all in is something that we win at. In this framework, it's going to consist of learning how to outsmart, out-strategize, and outlast the competition. So it's probably no secret to you that if you have a particular goal, whether you want to do content creation, whether you have a business that you want to start, you need to also understand that other people have those same goals and desires. And the unique thing and the beautiful thing about life is filled with competition. So if you're applying for that job, best believe other people want to go for that. Like, if you want to go to law school, there's going to be a bunch of other people who also want to go to law school. So the first step in this framework is learning how to outsmart the competition. You have to start to ask yourself questions like, what am I missing? How can I improve? What can I do that others aren't doing? When you learn to outsmart the competition, this looks like an athlete who studies their film and learns from the other opponents. Or this is a student who's going over their mistakes and figuring out where they're weak and ineffective with their study strategies. Or this is an entrepreneur studying their competition and studying different markets. Learning how to outsmart others is one of the most important frameworks that you can use. And there's this concept from this book called Blue Ocean Strategy. And basically what it describes is you never want to be in a red ocean. A red ocean is where all the competition is, everyone's doing the exact same thing, and there's no differentiators. Instead, you want to be in a blue ocean. How can you be different? And that all comes in with outsmarting. The next part of this framework is learning how to out-strategize, right? You'll get to a point on your journey that you'll realize that working hard isn't enough, right? So when I was in university, and especially in my first 2 years, I was working exceptionally hard. I'm talking about waking up early at 4 a.m., going to the shower, studying for 4 or 5 hours, going to my classes, back to studying. I was honestly moving like a robot. And you would think that led me to getting the most amazing results and being super effective, but it was actually quite literally the opposite. I didn't have a proper strategy that I was going about. I didn't know how to learn and study effectively. Fast forward to my 3rd and 4th year, I came up with a strategy. I learned how to learn and be more effective in my learning. And as a result, I was actually spending less time studying. I was doing more things that I enjoyed. And that was all part of having a solid strategy. You'll come to realize as high performers that you'll be capped on your capacity to work hard. There's only so many fixed hours within a day. So once you maximize how hard you can actually work, you have to be effective in your strategy. How can you be more efficient in how you work? And this strategy is very, very vital because it's going to be the difference between you and someone else contributing the same amount of hours, but getting 2 different inputs. And finally, my favorite out of the 3 frameworks is learning how to outlast, right? I want you to understand that you cannot fail if you never give up. I'll say that again. You cannot fail if you never give up. And that's what outlasting means. Like, let's say, God forbid, I gave up content creation. There's no way I can then pursue my goals of becoming an effective content creator and providing value to all of you. But because I haven't given up, because I have stayed persistent in this fight, I'm still in the race. And that's one of the most beautiful things about life, because even though you've been knocked down, even though your life isn't going the way you want it to be, even though you have a vision for your future, the fact that you're still in the game, the fact that you're still breathing means you still have an opportunity to go after those goals. This is why I get so passionate about these videos. This is why I talk about becoming a high performer, because the moment that you're still living, the moment that you're still breathing, the moment that you're still watching a video like this means you still have the opportunity to go after your goals. I want you to look at a graveyard. If you've ever been to a funeral, you need to understand that those people no longer have those opportunities that you have. And if you haven't noticed, life is going by like this. We are already halfway through the year. Like, I know you remember the start of this year, and it's crazy to think how fast everything is going by. But remember, if you outlast the competition, you cannot fail. I think back to my days at soccer, and my soccer coach gave this great analogy. Whatever goal you have, you need to understand that there will be barriers in the way. There will be moments of friction when that goal is not going to plan. And what matters most is what you decide to do once you're met with those levels of friction, right? A lot of people have been met with those same exact friction that you will be met with. And some of them decide to quit and no longer pursue their goals, while others decide to outlast the competition and keep pushing forward. That's the difference, right? When I look at someone who I admire in a certain position, whether that's in business, athletics, the content creation space, typically they've outlasted the competition for many years to come. And I know this sounds simple, but learning how to outlast, learning how to continuously show up on a day-to-day basis is not easy by any means. But if you can do it, you will ensure yourself that you will never fail. And you know, one of my mentors has always mentioned to me, and it's super important, that whatever goal that you have, pursue, right? When you're going all in on yourself, you need to also identify the high leverage tasks that will make failure impossible. And I think this is a beautiful way to look at it, right? So if your goal is to lose weight, for example, the high leverage task to make that impossible is quite literally simple. It's tracking your calories. It's doing resistance training. It's ensuring that you're in a caloric deficit. And over time, that will make it inevitable that you will lose weight. And there's so many examples of this. This goes towards the athlete that's training for their particular sport, or the student that's studying for their particular class, or if you're working to hit a financial goal as well. You need to break it down into the high leverage tasks that will make failure impossible. So let's take me for a content creator, right? One of the things that will make failure impossible on this content creation journey is if I keep posting videos, if I keep providing values, if I keep showing up, if I'm tracking my stats and my analytics, if I'm looking at the data and seeing what's being responded well within the social media landscape. And if I do that over and over and over again, this will ensure that I'm progressing forward with the art of going all in on myself. You know, I see too often, too many people are whom I like to call busybodies. They do a bunch of work that doesn't contribute to anything, thinking they're doing something. And I actually used to be a busybody, funny enough. I used to do a bunch of work, have my schedule completely packed, feel like I was moving the needle forward. But then when I really looked at it, they were not the high leverage tasks needed to make failure impossible. And the scary thing about this is there's a lot of people doing their task on a day-to-day basis, not realizing that they're not actually doing the high leverage task. Like, if some of you are familiar with the 80-20 rule, it basically describes that 20% of the work that you do accounts for 80% of the results that you get. So that means if you can focus all your attention on the 20%, the most important, the high leverage task, that means you'll get 80% of the results that you need for your goal. So as we're talking about going all in on yourself, the high leverage tasks are the first step towards making that goal inevitable. Another component of going all in on yourself is learning how to say no. Now, this is very difficult. It is extremely difficult for high performers, and it's difficult for the regular everyday person. If you haven't noticed, life is trying to pull you in so many different directions, right? And one of my favorite quotes that I've always repeated myself is, if you don't have a dream, you'll be a resource in someone else's dream. And once I thoroughly understood that, and this comes back to learning how to say no. If you don't know how to say no, if you don't know what your high leverage task is, and if you don't know how to actually go all in on yourself, you'll be pulled in every single direction. Hey, you want to go out to that party or that event? Yeah, I'm going there. Hey, you want to go do X, Y, and Z with me? Yeah. Hey, come over here and do this. If you don't know how to say no, you're going to be dragged in every single direction. And remember, time is finite, right? We only have 24 hours within a day. So if you're pulling yourself in so many different directions, you're going to be spreading yourself thin and actually not have enough time to work work towards your high leverage task. And the coolest thing I realize is all the people that you admire have the same 24 that you have. The difference is their ability to say no, their ability to focus on the high leverage tasks that they need to drive the needle forward and say no to everything else. And trust me, at one point, this was a very hard struggle for me as well. I used to think that I had to be everywhere to be effective, but because I didn't understand what my high leverage tasks were, I was basically spreading myself thin. Like I mentioned before, just being a busybody. So whenever you're met with external distractions, I want you to ask yourself, is this bringing you closer to the person that you want to be? Is this a distraction or is this aiding me on my journey? And deep down, if you're honest with yourself, you'll know if this is bringing you towards your goals or pulling you away from them. Because one of the beautiful things about success is sometimes it's not about adding more to your plate, but rather subtracting the things that are already distracting you. Now, although I'm getting passionate about the art of going all in on yourself, you also need to understand that you will become a different person in the process. Your priorities will shift, your schedule will change, the people that you hang around with and communicate with will also change because now you're fixated on a particular goal and North Star that you're working towards. And if you're watching a video like this, I'm assuming that you want to be a part of the exception. You don't want to be like everybody else. So remember, if you want to be a part of the exception, you cannot do what everyone else does. You're going to be misunderstood. You're going to find it hard to relate to most people. You have to understand that it's not fair for you to expect to have exceptional results while living like everybody else. And the scary thing is a lot of people have $1 million appetite, but a minimum wage work ethic. Think about that. Like, how can you have $1 million appetite, only have a minimum wage work ethic? And as you're navigating this journey and as you're going towards your pursuit, you've identified what you're going all in on. You know what your North Star is. You understand the high leverage tasks that you have to do on a day-to-day basis. You understand that your identity is going to shift. Your habits will change. Your schedule is going to look different. One thing that's also going to change is you're going to feel lonely. You're not going to be alone, but you will feel lonely at times. And I want you to understand that this is completely normal. You said you wanted to be a part of the exception. You said you didn't want to be like everybody else. So you have to accept everything that comes with that. You have to accept that you'll be living a different quality of life. You'll have to accept the fact that it's going to be lonely. That you're going to have to miss out on some weekends. You're going to have to miss out on the events. And for me on my journey, and I probably will get into the story a little bit more deeper, I was in a unique situation where at one point, the people who I thought were really close with me, I saw them going out, I would look on social media, I wasn't being invited places, and that forced me to learn how to love being alone. And I learned that this was actually my superpower because now I'm at the point where I don't need that external validation. I don't need to be around an entourage of 10 people just to feel validated. You're going to realize that as you're pursuing your goals, as your identity is changing, as you're going all in on yourself, there's going to be moments when it feels lonely. There's going to be moments where you have to be able to sit down at your desk for hours and work on a project. And if you can't sit with yourself, if you don't know what it's like to actually be alone, if you don't know what it's like to eat alone, go to the movies alone, enjoy your own company, it's going to be very hard to go all in on yourself. You got to keep in mind that not everyone's going to be on this ride. You have to understand that you as a person are changing. The people around you are changing. And although it might feel lonely at times, although you might feel alone, you have to understand that you're actually not alone. There are people, there are communities, there are support systems that are rooting for you. In these communities, they will encourage you to go after your goals. They'll encourage you to push for new levels and new heights. And when I talk about being lonely, but you're not actually alone, I don't want you to mistake that for thinking that you have to do everything by yourself and you have to be this lone wolf that everyone promotes. I truly believe that's a trap, right? There's that popular saying, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go with others. So once you start to slowly accumulate your tribe and the people that you have in your corner, this is how you can actually start to go much further. But that initial stage when you're sort of figuring it out on yourself, when you're actually going all in on your purpose and your goals, you will feel alone. This is completely normal. But I want you to love that feeling. I want you to learn how to love being by yourself because this will be your greatest superpower. So now I look back to all those people who didn't invite me to those soccer practices that I want to go to, or those people that went to the mall or the events and didn't even include me. And I actually thank them because through that process, I learned how to be alone. Like even right now, I'm in the stadium right now. I'm completely by myself. And that's okay because I love doing this. I love speaking to all my high performers and providing value. But again, I wouldn't be able to get to this point if I didn't learn to love being alone, learn to love my own company. And I think about a lot when I was doing content creation completely by myself. I didn't really know who to talk to. I didn't have any experts to reach out to. I was honestly just freestyling it. And then I noticed when I joined communities and I was part of mentorship groups, that's when I grew the most. That's when I was surrounded by mentors where I got consistent feedback, where I learned how to tune in my message. That's how I learned how to improve over time. And that's the same thing what I mean with all of you. Yes, you're going to be going all in on your goals. This is the art of going all in on yourself. But at the same time, don't mistake this for being this complete lone wolf. Seek out the mentorship, seek out the community, seek out this help and support that you need. I want you to understand that nobody accomplishes great successes in life all alone. No matter how many people want to tell you that they're this self-made person and they did everything by themselves, I'm telling you that that is BS. That is not true. Every single person that I know that's achieved something great, I promise you they got help along the way. Even for myself right now, guys, I'm not going to be a great content creator without help along the way, without your support, without you liking these videos, without you subscribing, without speaking to mentors, other content creators that are succeeding and learning from them as well. I get help, you get help, and being a high performer, I want you to understand that it is okay to get help. It is actually very intelligent to get help because there's people that have learned things and they can help speed up your learning process. You don't have to go through this all alone. And this is why I'm building out a community for high performers where you don't feel alone, where you feel supported, where you actually have objectives and deliverables. And if any of you are interested, I have a wait list for my community in the first link in the description. Once you fill out that form, you'll be notified once this community drops. And for those of you who want to be even more serious, you want to identify the high leverage tasks and the goals that you're working towards, you want someone to help hold you accountable, support you along the way, and ensure that failure becomes impossible, book a call for my one-on-one coaching, and we'll see if you're a good fit for the program. And I want you to understand that through this coaching, you'll be pushed outside your comfort zone. But I need you to remember that growth only happens outside your comfort zone. Every single moment in my life where I've grown, I've been pushed outside my comfort zone. From doing resistance training at the gym, from doing public speaking and speaking in front of audiences of over 1,000 people, this was all getting outside my comfort zone. From investing in other mentors, this was all getting outside my comfort zone. And I promise you, every single time I've grown, and I've never looked back and regretted it. So, ladies and gentlemen, that is it for today's video. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. You know what I always say, make sure to always believe that you will achieve. My name is Miles, aka Mr. High Performance, and I'll see you in the next one.